Hello, and welcome to the Remind Podcast, the podcast where we get inside the real estate entrepreneur's mind. My name is Harrison Smith. I'm the Director of Growth with the Matea Group at Keller Williams Realty here in Maine. And I'm joined today by Mike Susi from WhitesPoint. How you doing, Mike?
Good, Harrison. Good. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Excited to have a conversation today.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks for joining us. So why don't we start off with, for those who don't know who are you and what is WhitesPoint?
Sure. So I'm Michael Susi. I'm based in Portland, Maine, born and raised in Maine. So I've been here my whole life, just about. Yeah, I kind of got into real estate. We'll get into the kind of full story of how I got into it. But in short, what I'm doing now is a little bit of private lending through Select Realty Capital Group. But then a newer venture and a big focus of mine right now is our new business, WhitesPoint, which is a real estate investment firm where we're looking to acquire and already have acquired multifamily real estate using kind of a value add strategy, which we can kind of get into a little bit. And then also making it possible for others to invest in real estate passively. So looking to take on other equity partners, joint venture on things, any sort of creative ways to get into these multifamily deals, and using kind of our expertise and our knowledge and experience from past deals, both in multifamily and then prior, to put these things together and really just kind of grow our wealth and create a larger portfolio that can help us sustain our growth and build long-term wealth, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. So before we dive into WhitesPoint a little bit further, why don't you share your story of your progression all the way in through real estate and to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I'll bring it back to when I graduated college. So, or even during college, I'll say I went to college studying exercise science and fitness management, with the goal of ultimately opening my own gym or gyms. And then as I was moving through school, I found that. I started to second guess a little bit. It was a little bit. I don't know if that's really what I want to do. I like working out. I like physical fitness, and I like that whole idea. But do I want to make it my whole life? I'm not really sure. And that's when I started to explore other avenues. You name it, I probably looked into it. Whether it's drop shipping, the stock market.
Sure.
Lost plenty of money in a handful of things, but all learning experiences. So we'll say it was for the better. Because I like to take at least one positive from every what could be negative. So and then fast forward, real estate's what really stuck to me, and I really it seemed like I kept coming back to it. And Harrison, as you know, there's so many ways you can kind of navigate through real estate and
Sure.
make money in real estate. So I ventured into something called wholesaling, and that's what I thought I wanted to do when I graduated. And then I reached the point at graduation where I was faced with okay, I could go get a good W-2 job and I can try to pursue real estate on the side, or I can take the quote unquote leap. And I decided to do just that. And I started just networking as much as I possibly could and found my way into Select Realty Capital, which is a private lending firm where we basically lend on fix and flips, new builds, all very short term lending. A lot of people know it as hard money lending. And that was kind of my in. I started stealing office space, and it ultimately just gradually became my full-time gig. And so it was a great opportunity for me to learn about real estate, learn about the investing side of real estate, which is really where I wanted to be, and kind of a means to my own investments, which was really, has been the goal all along. And then that kind of culminated into doing a deal and then trading up into what is most recently 32 units in Calhoun, Georgia, which is just north of Atlanta. And now with WhitesPoint, we're just looking to replicate that, really, whether it be like I said earlier, through joint venture or syndication. Those are both routes that WhitesPoint aims to go. And we're looking at a handful of deals right now. I have some offers out right now, LOIs out. Um, and that's kind of how I got to this point today. And now WhitesPoint is a large focus. I have one business partner in WhitesPoint, and that being Mark Booten, and he's also local. And yeah, that's kind of how the story behind how I got into real estate. And I love it too. I definitely don't want to leave that out. I love it. I enjoy it. It keeps me I'm excited about it every morning when I get up. And I also like that it's not just any old W-2 job where you can kind of go through the motions. It forces me to work hard every day, and earn every penny that I'm making, really, from a financial perspective.
Yeah, that's a great story, and it's funny how there's so many of us that end up in real estate, but we didn't start there. We came from somewhere else.
Hmm.
And then for you, when you look back, was there like a defining moment when it became clear real estate was going to be your thing, or was it just the constant presence of it that eventually led you to it?
Yeah, and that's actually a really good question because I don't think I've ever identified a specific moment, but if I had to, it's probably I got out of school and I was doing as a temporary job, knowing very well that I was leaning in the direction of getting into real estate. I was doing a temporary job, and it was data entry, and so as you can
Mm,
imagine, it was just monotonous. And I would sit there and just think about real estate and listen to real estate
yeah.
podcasts for hours on end, and really whatever I could do to take myself away from the work that I was doing at this company. And I eventually negotiated. It was a temporary job. They wanted to keep me a little bit longer, so I negotiated basically half the hours so that I could go
Mm,
and do some lending stuff in the afternoons. And I think it was at that point that I realized, okay, I have a period of time here, a set period of time where in the afternoons I'll be going to the real estate to pursue real estate. So in that period of time, I want to do as much as I can to set myself up so that once it ends, I can start to transition in full time. And so I think that was a pivotal point for me, recognizing that if I it's now or never, really.
mhm.
Just take the leap now. You're young. You can take the risk. Your expenses are relatively low compared to most, and so that was kind of my defining moment. The long-winded answer.
Sure, no, that's a good one. Sometimes it's not just one moment, sometimes it's over time, and,
Mhm.
most people attribute it to a book they read or some event, but sometimes it's just, it's one of those things that keeps coming back to you, so
Certainly.
that's great. So
Hmm.
what so let's talk a little bit about White's Point. So,
Yeah.
kinda what most attracted you to this business?
Yeah.
What are you guys focused on right now?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess first part of the question is, what attracted me to it. So I've always had big goals, big aspirations, and within those, it's kind of been, what could it look like getting to those big goals and big aspirations monetarily, and then also just forgetting what I want to out of life as a human being. And so what it came down to was I did a flip, and I wanted to start acquiring some other multifamilies at some capacity. And it was kind of hard to determine what size and where to start. And
Mhm.
people always seem to default to, and myself included, single family, and then your progression is a duplex, and then maybe you start to venture into what's considered commercial and 5 units and up. And um, I didn't really cross my mind early enough that, who's to say that you can't kind of get into those larger deals earlier, or, larger deals in the grand scheme of things. So I had a really good opportunity with my business partner to get into these 32 units, with just some pre-existing relationships. And we just took that as an opportunity to say, hey, this is kind of it. And it really, and to be honest with you, it kind of fell into my lap, and it was really eye-opening too, because it showed, okay, one, we can do this, but two, why not take a great opportunity to learn about the space. And then we've done exactly that. And from that acquisition point and through the acquisition, we've just learned a tremendous amount about everything that goes into not only acquiring but managing, and then creating new relationships that can be beneficial, and figuring out kind of how to best build a team, because multifamily investing is not a solo sport. It's very
Mhm.
much a team sport.
For
Um,
sure.
so then, kind of moving forward with what we're trying to accomplish there, really, the main goal within it is, I like to use an example of, I have a handful of people in my network who've seen what I've been doing and been interested and have and want to invest in real estate, but maybe don't have one of two things: the time, um, or the resources, and really keeps coming back to time to learn about the real estate, and the time to commit to managing real estate. So, for instance, if you want to get into a bigger deal, more often than not, people are like, "Hey, how am I going to make the time? If I'm a high income W-2
Hmm.
earner, there's a good chance that I, don't have 4, 5, 6 hours a day to commit to this, or whatever it might be, whatever that number is." So, is there a way to passively invest, or have some level of activity within the investment, but make it reasonable for what their time would allow for? And so that's really what we're trying to create for others. And we've had some very good success and some very high interest for that. And like I said, we're actively looking at deals now, um, to bring other partners into the deal as equity partners, so that they can have a piece of the pie, if you will, and reap the benefits of not only the cash flow, but the longer term appreciation, forced appreciation, and then other benefits, kind of along the way, without having to go through the full-time job that is acquiring multifamily real estate, and managing it. So that's the primary goal, allowing people to invest their money and not so much their time, but also be a good resource to them. And we're trying to also within White's Point build out kind of our educational, platform in a sense, and be a resource and a consultant in many ways in just sharing what we know, so that for a couple of reasons, so that anybody that's invested or interested in investing can have a resource that they can turn to when they have questions. But also, obviously giving confidence in that whatever we're underwriting, and looking at and potentially acquiring is something that they have confidence that we'll be looking at good deals, and um, getting them into the right investments, in a sense, or
Sure, sure.
presenting opportunities that are good investments rather.
Yeah, so we're talking syndication where you're bringing,
Mhm,
ownership and larger investment deals to the
mhm.
public as an investment option, which I think is great. Are you guys raising capital on a per deal basis? Is it a fund? How
Yeah.
do you guys operate?
Sure. So right now it's on a per deal basis, but
Okay.
we are transitioning into a fund that is in the works, and we're very excited about it. We've been somewhere in between. How quickly do we want to move forward with that? And we are taking a leap in a sense of starting to get the ball rolling with that now. But for the time being, deal by deal basis,
Okay.
because there's tons of advantages to the fund certainly. Um, but for now, it's a deal by deal basis, and we'll be sharing it with our network, our existing, network, and always looking to create new relationships too to share these opportunities with. And the way I like to put it is, hey, if it's something that you could potentially be interested in, let me know, and I'll start to share the things that we're looking at, whether they're those true active opportunities that we're really truly pursuing, or something that we see some potential in, just so you can start laying your eyes on some different deals, getting a feel for the return structure, getting a feel for our strategy and our kind of value add strategy, and how we go about forcing appreciation, and just having a better, holistic viewpoint on what we're looking at.
Yeah, that's great, especially where we are. We don't see a lot of opportunities like that. So to have a firm like yours, kind of bring those opportunities out is a great opportunity for those of us that may not have the same level of access to
Mhm.
large deals.
Definitely. And we see I'll use our 32 units down in Georgia as an example. We've already had numerous other, off-market opportunities down
Mm.
there just as a result of buying this one. So, with kind of getting your foot in the door in one market comes other opportunities, just as you establish a presence. And so I think there's a lot to be said for that as well. And just, once you get the ball rolling, the momentum starts to build, and the acquisitions in theory become a little bit easier, and you get to look at a little bit more, deals before others.
Sure. So one more question on White's Point. So
Yeah.
are there any limitations to the investors you can work with? Are there minimums? What
Mhm.
would somebody be expecting getting into a deal with White's Point?
Sure. So, kind of going back to the deal by deal basis, there are some deals that we'll look at as more of a joint venture opportunity. And what I would mean by that is it might be a smaller deal where, maybe we bring in one or two, primarily equity partners who also want to be a little bit active,
Okay.
within the joint venture. In which case they might bring some equity and then also have some sort of ongoing role, excuse me, as we operate the property. So that could be kind of one form. And in terms of a minimum investment for that, it'd probably be at a bare minimum, probably 40 to 50 grand.
Okay.
And then for the larger syndications, that would be most likely accredited investors only. But in some cases, there are some forms of raise that we might partake in that don't necessarily mean you need to be accredited. And we can and that's kind of a whole other subject in itself.
Yeah.
But in terms of minimums, I would say right around 50 grand. And in some cases, especially for those joint venture deals where if they're small enough and we can justify a role for a couple of people, it might present an opportunity where you could bring 25, 30 grand as a starting point, entry point.
Okay. That's great. So it's something that's not, everybody hears the $250,000 accredited investor requirements, and there's a lot of people that can't reach that amount. But
Mhm.
40 or 50,000, you're going to find a lot more people that want to be in these deals that now can actually get into them.
Yeah, and I also think of it from a perspective of if you have a quarter million sitting around that you want to deploy, maybe it is a good idea to diversify that within a handful of things, but in real estate specifically, maybe if you have 250 that you want to put into real estate, maybe it's if 50,000 in a deal here and 100,000 in another deal over here. So um, yeah, that could be another option, but our kind of strategy right now is being open to those joint venture deals, which we're more familiar with. But we also have the ability to get into those larger syndications just through our resources and being well networked with other people that are currently operating these larger deals. And going back to the idea that it's very much a team sport, and if we can play our part in the management and bringing in equity, then we can allow some other asset managers to kind of go to work and be a professional at what they do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
So let's turn our attention back to you for a little bit. When you think about what you've been through, is there anything that you can point to as kind of the most important thing to your success? A particular habit, trait, mentor, mindset? Anything in particular
Mhm.
you point to?
Yeah, and you kind of presented these questions prior, and I did a lot of thinking on this one in particular, and I found that I came up with a few examples, but one thing that all seemed to culminate in one word in particular, and that's kind of perseverance. And
Mm.
I think about when I was just getting started in real estate, and as you know, there's many ups and downs to being an entrepreneur, and
Oh yeah.
in many cases, you're not making money. To relate it to money, you're not making money day one, um, and you need to recognize that it could be 3 months, 6 months, 12 months before you really get going. And so, I think the biggest kind of attribute that I've showed throughout my entrepreneurship journey, which is very much just getting started in a lot of senses, is perseverance and understanding that um, you're not gonna have success overnight, and knowing that there's going to be tough days, there's going to be tough weeks, there's going to be tough months even, but pushing through those and getting to that next opportunity is what's going to create a lasting business, but then also grow you as an individual and an entrepreneur.
No, that's a great answer. Everybody sees the success and thinks it just happened. Like it was an
Mhm.
overnight success, like you said, and nobody sees the hard work and the late nights and things like
Yeah.
that go on behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, and it is. And it's hard to put into words too, to an extent, and especially because it's something you almost expect when you get into it, but when it becomes a reality, it's a lot different. So being able to put your head down and really just persevere, yeah, there's a lot to be kind of said for it, and it's a necessity when you're starting a new business or um, just taking the entrepreneurship journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of to the other side of the pendulum, what do you think's been the most difficult lesson you've learned along the way?
Yeah. Let's see. I had a couple things written down. I'm actually going to refer to them right now, but um, I think it kind of goes to the beginning phases, and the understanding. The lesson that I learned was the psychological challenges of the bad week or the bad month,
Mm.
and you can be the strongest psychological person out there, and it'll still eat away at you a little bit. So just kind of wrapping my head around that and being able to cope with that more than anything, expecting it, but more so than expecting it, just knowing, recognizing when it's happening, and recognizing what you need to do to continue to push through. Um, and also it's just surrounding yourself with others that are entrepreneurial and can speak to it a little bit too. And if you're in a bad month or whatever, just running it by somebody that can relate to it. And usually that's for me, that's what it takes, is just saying it out loud and saying, hey, this is it. I'm having one of those months. Like I need a kick in the butt, and then just keeping going. So that's probably been the most difficult thing to kind of cope with. But again, it's nothing that can't be overcome, and it's almost something that you're forced to cope with. So
Yeah, yeah, it's so key that you understand that, a bad day or a bad week doesn't mean it's gonna be a bad outcome. It's being able
mhm,
to continue to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and plow ahead,
that's right.
even when things aren't going great. So I think that's great.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree.
All right, so along those same lines, what's the one piece of advice you wish you had known, when you
Mhm.
got started?
Um, I would say it's never too early to get the word out about what you're doing, and what you're trying to accomplish. And I mean that in the most generic sense possible, because that's what it can be early on. That's what it should be early on, in my opinion. Is as you're pursuing something and you're serious about it, it can't just be anything. But as you determine what you're doing, getting the word out there. And the reason I say that is, more people are going to be willing and apt to help you in your journey than you might think. Whether it's in the form of giving you business, or pushing people your way, or introducing you to new people, it could be in any form. But I think there's such an importance in just getting the word out about what you're doing. And then as part of that, a lot of the kind of the reasons you might not, might be, hey, what if I start putting the word out there and people start asking me questions I don't know the answers? One, learning how to answer those questions, or not deflect, but learning how to give an answer in a way that's constructive. And if you don't know the answer, going and finding the answer, whether it's from another professional, whether it's from any sort of research. But it's good practice in, um, just learning how to respond to people, how to answer questions, how to solve problems, and then all the while you're learning about whatever craft you're starting to master. So you know, in short, getting the word out there about whatever you're doing, and starting to kind of plant the seed, if you will.
I love that answer. Building a business in private might feel safe, but it's never gonna go anywhere if you don't
That's
tell
right.
people what you're up to. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's something that I think when I was getting started initially in real estate, I was hesitant to do.
Yeah.
It could be, and I think a lot of it honestly was derived from I don't know everything yet. But after a handful of months, I realized I'm never going to know everything. So what am I, what am I waiting for? And I think that's another a big point to make, is you're never going to know everything. Every day is a learning experience. No matter what you're doing, you could be the best at what you do, and there's still going to be things you're learning about every day.
Yeah, yeah, if you're waiting to get started until you know everything, you will never get started
Yeah,
because
it's gonna be a
we
long
learn every
road.
day. We
Yeah,
learn every day.
yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, so with that, if people want to get in touch with you to learn more about you or more about White's Point, what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm active on, Instagram. I would say I would push you to our White's Point Instagram.
Okay.
And then I am most active on LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out to me, I'd love to receive a message on LinkedIn, and then we can set up a time to either chat, or if you're local, I'd love to grab coffee, lunch, anything. I love the face-to-face meetings. I think they're the most productive, and I think there's always something to be taken from them. So if anybody's interested, any listeners out there interested in chatting, whether it's about something specific like syndication, or multifamily, or just real estate in general, I'm happy to chat.
Great. So it's whitespoint.com.
Yes, and then our website's whitespoint.com. Yep.
Excellent.
And
Yeah.
everything should be easily linked from my LinkedIn, so that might be a good place to start,
Great.
if there's any issues.
Great. Yeah, I know I signed up for the newsletter and I signed up for the webinar you guys have coming up. Looking forward to it. So
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, we
good
do
stuff.
have a I might shamelessly plug that
Go
here.
for it.
We do have a webinar, and I'm not sure when this is getting released, but November 10th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, WhitesPoint's hosting a webinar. We're kind of doing a live deal analysis and a high-level view of how we're underwriting deals, how we're looking at deals, and we have a veteran in the space kind of walking us through that, and he's somebody that I've already learned quite a bit from. So I can definitely speak to. He's a pretty good resource and a pretty good person to listen from.
Awesome.
Listen to.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, that's all we have for today. But really appreciate you being here, Michael. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Harrison. I really enjoyed it, and I hope somebody can take something from this.
Yeah, and I look forward to having you back here in the future. We can hear what White's Point's up to.
Love it. I love it. Sounds
Awesome.
good.